Emma Burns. This is something that we had hoped to, a conversation that we were looking forward to following our BOMA, annual BOMA luncheon. But then due to COVID, we needed to put this off for a few weeks, now months. And we're really looking forward to getting an update on all the things that are happening downtown, and particularly the teeing up of the Business Improvement District and some of the other initiatives that you're working on. So we are very excited to have you here today, get an update. Typically, we hand over the floor to our presenters, and I keep my eye on the mute buttons, and if one of my colleagues has a question and they want to butt in and get a question answered along the way, I'll just call on them and interrupt, but otherwise we'll get to the end and ask outstanding questions. So if that makes sense and you can hear me this time, we will move forward and welcome Joe Spencer and Emma Burns this morning. So welcome.
Thank you, Council President Bren Mohn and members of the City Council. This is it's a brave new world for me. This is a new format, but hopefully things go well. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to share some of what we've learned and worked on over the past couple of years with the St. Paul Downtown Alliance. A logistical question, and maybe Emma can help me with this. How do I go to share screen?
The little button on the bottom row.
Not the IM, the three dots?
I've got share.
Oh, there we go. Okay, and that's just confirming that's appropriate to share my screen here? Yeah?
Yep.
Share content. Manage content? Bear with me, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Sometimes, like our experience has been that it takes a second and then it kind of rolls out to all of us. So we'll just keep an eye on the screen as you wrestle with technology.
It says content. That doesn't seem right. I don't think I want to use OneNote. Well, darn it.
Council President Bren Mohn and council members, I can try to share my screen. You might just have to cue me to advance the slides, but that is
sure.
Okay.
All right, great. So we can just go to the next slide. That's just a nice, pretty picture. All right, so the St. Paul Downtown Alliance came into being just a couple of years ago, and one of the first three kind of priorities or initiatives of the Alliance was to explore the feasibility of what the state legal language calls a special services district. And what a downtown improvement district or special services district, or they're very commonly called business improvement district, what that is a self-imposed and self-managed assessment district or fee district to provide enhanced services that are clearly above and beyond what would normally be delivered from the city or other public sector. So self-imposed, self-managed district by business for business is how it's often described. And you can go to the next slide, please. And this conversation has been going on not just for the last 2 years, but many, many years, maybe even decades, as Councilmember Prince reminded me before the call. And specifically, before the Alliance came into being, there was an organization called the Riverfront Corporation, and they produced this downtown vitality vision. This was a nearly 2-year process with hundreds of people, and that vision, go to the next slide, really had three main recommendations, one of which was to create a special services district or coordinated management district, which again, other words for the same thing. So go to the next slide. So when the Alliance was born, it took on that recommendation as one of its key initiatives. Next slide. It was particularly important, though, that it wasn't the goal that was stated at the time, and this predates my involvement with the Alliance, but the goal that was stated at the time was to explore the feasibility. And this quote from one of our co-chairs, Chris Hilger, was that we have to confirm that there's going to be support first and foremost before we move forward with it, and that especially means support from the people who are going to pay for it, support from the would-be ratepayers. And so that was our charge as we began our work with the St. Paul Downtown Alliance. Next slide. So the first thing we did was just a ton of research. And St. Paul is the 64th largest city in America by population, sometimes 63, sometimes 64. But literally every city larger than us has a district serving their downtown. Many cities much smaller than us also have districts serving their downtown. In Minnesota, there are prominent districts in downtown Minneapolis, the Duluth waterfront, and Rochester. Des Moines has one. Basically, any city you've been to in the last 5 to 10 years, there probably was a district in place enhancing those services and helping it compete for economic growth and success. So as we looked at all those cities, we this chart here just shows some peer cities. One of the things that became very clear right away is they all have a little bit different point of emphasis, or maybe do some different branding or marketing, but the bulk of the services are really all very similar. A safe and clean program is really what carries the day. Some cities implement a greening or landscaping program, or take over contracts to manage and maintain parks. But for the most part, that kind of core service of safe and clean is really the kind of the core of these districts. Next slide. So there's an organization called the International Downtown Association. We joined right away. We became members and just learned a lot from our peers around the country. Philadelphia boasts that when they started their district, crime was reduced by 40%. Red Bank in New Jersey saw their occupancy really skyrocket, and in a community in California, really measured how it affected their property tax increases. Those are all essentially kind of self-reported results. If you go to the next slide, there's a more academically rigorous study that was done by the RAND Corporation that tried to account for other external factors like overall crime trends in the area, economic trends in the area, and tried to isolate what was the impact of the district itself relative to other parts of Los Angeles, in this case, that didn't have districts. And what they found was that those communities with a district had a 12% reduction in robberies and other violent crime. Next slide. So the core kind of safe and clean services, and Holly, I'm not sure if you're able to enable content on yours. This is about a 2-minute video that I find to be really an efficient way to understand most often how these services are delivered. There's a company, well, Holly's working on that, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But there's a company called Block by Block that delivers these services for I don't know if it's most communities, but certainly many communities. And they're the Block by Block is clearly the industry leader across the country. That's who Minneapolis works with, Duluth, Rochester. They all work with this same company. There are others, and so there will come a time when we'll want to bid these services out. There are some other options to go to, but they definitely provide some great great perspective. And again, this short clip perhaps will help us out. Holly, how's that looking?
Councilmember Brenmo, Mr. Spencer, I am working on trying to pull up that. If you want to give me one more second, I can try to, yep, just hang tight. Let's see. It's a large file, but I am just about there. You have a lot of nice pictures.
Sorry about this, folks.
Here.
Figure out how to do my own damn screen share. Wouldn't put Holly through this.
Let's see. I'm not seeing an option on the drop file to.
Okay. You know what? Let's skip past that. If we have time at the end, we can come to it. And maybe while we're doing that, I'll ask Emma if you can figure out the screen share, and we can come back to that short clip
Do one of us need to be made presenters
toward the end.
on Skype?
Do one of us need to be made presenters on Skype? Is that perhaps a limiting factor?
I can see if I can change. Okay.
I switched him to presenter.
Okay, yep.
Oh, okay.
We can, do you want to give it a shot, Joe? And otherwise I will continue to share my
Oh, look
screen.
at this. Yeah, I got it right here. Bingo, bango.
Thank you.
All right, am I sharing now? Is this working?
Yes, on screen.
Okay. All right. Is this showing up for folks?
Yep, it looks good.
Okay, sorry about all that. Here we go. This is just, again, a short 2-minute clip, kind of a stop time animation, a day in the life of an ambassador. You get a sense of the kind of range of activities that those services include. All right, so there you just get I feel like that's a really efficient way to get a sense of what that kind of ambassador model provides. We've been lucky in that Minneapolis next door, they've had their district in place for 11 years now. And those of you who know me and have worked with me know that I never like to try to out Minneapolis. But in this case, their program is one of the sort of most highly regarded in the country. They really do a great job, and so we've learned a lot from them and their services, and their staff have been really helpful for us as we've been going through this development process. One of the things that they do really well is they developed or have kind of led the country in the development of the Safety Communications Center, or what we've called the Fusion Center. The four kind of main purposes of that Fusion Center is to support and dispatch the ambassadors. So whether it's a cleanup need or a social service need, or somebody, they come across somebody who might be in need of other social service partners, they'll kind of make that connection. The Fusion Center also will coordinate with a variety of, again, service providers, social service providers. The other big thing they do is coordinate with the private security assets that exist. All of these buildings downtown typically will have their own security staff. And I was surprised to learn that by and large, they don't really work together at all. So if for example, there's an issue that needs some care or attention, it happens at the Skyway level, if it moves across the bridge into another building, there's not really a kind of coordinated effort to track things as they move around, or just give folks a heads up as different issues pop up around the downtown. So that's an important part of the Fusion Center, specifically conditioning that communication collaboration by having mandatory roll calls throughout the day, 3 or 4 times a day, to get those staff in the habit of checking in with that safety communications hub to say, you know, all clear, or hey, we had some challenge this morning, it looked like this and that, and then that information gets shared as needed. And then of course, finally, also to collaborate and cooperate with the public sector, both St. Paul PD as well as Ramsey County and Metro Transit. So that is a part of our plan as well. This shows our plan design. We're planning to sublease some space in the 401 building, which sets up, I think, good collaboration and coordination with the police. One thing I wanted to mention, and I know it came up in a letter to council, talking about boundaries. This is something we looked at quite a lot as we explored the feasibility of the district, and there are different models out there. This is kind of 3 examples. On the left, you see Minneapolis. It's kind of one big 120 block square for the most part, and that's one model. On the coasts, you see a different model, more like the one in the middle from Southern California, where you have a number of different districts that are organized and sort of governed. They're often cooperatively managed, but they are sort of separate districts, and they kind of grow. One will establish, and then the next one, and the next one. And then in the third, on the right there, you see the model from Nashville, where it started out as a very small portion of the downtown, and then as they were able to demonstrate success, other adjacent parts of the downtown wanted to be a part of it. And so rather than creating several separate districts, they just continued to essentially re-petition for an ever larger district. Again, the whole premise of these, though, is that it's self-imposed and self-managed by business for business. So really that growth is dependent on proving success and getting buy-in. We also did a fair amount of research just in our own community. We did a survey about 18 months ago. We had about 15,000 people respond to that. And when we asked folks what were the attributes that would be most important when considering to move your business or your office or maybe your home to a location, the area of feeling safe was far and away and consistently the highest the highest or most important factor. We also asked people how safe they felt in downtown St. Paul. And again, this is 18 months ago, where we've got some unique challenges due to our current state of affairs with COVID and everything. But by and large, there were some concerns, but people at that time reported feeling, for the most part, safe in downtown or neutral. This is a slide. We did also some third-party research with a SMS Research Advisors, and as they talked to both general consumers as well as business decision makers, safety was always, again, it was sort of the most important, kind of the foundation of any efforts we might have to try and attract more employers into downtown St. Paul. And also some survey work we did with BOMA showed public safety as the most important. So I'm showing you now just some highlights. Last summer, we got some great support from Knight Foundation and some others to run a pilot program to see what it was like having some of these ambassadors out on the streets. And we got some great results. One of the things, we worked with Block by Block on this particular pilot. These programs do a great job of really relying on good data and being able to report good data, including geotagging, where the services are provided. So whether it's offering directions, like you see in the top middle box, or which, if somebody felt they needed an escort to their car for safety reasons, or maybe to handle packages or what have you, that would map out where those calls are coming from and to. And also, basically everything they do gets geocoded through their handheld devices, so we know kind of where there are concentrations of need, where maybe we need to focus more efforts, those kinds of things. So this is our team. We did a little bit of placemaking last summer as well, but having 1,500 people got what we call the hospitality assist. It most often looked like somebody getting directions to a destination in downtown St. Paul. Over 500 graffiti tags were removed over the summer, and I think it's important to note that the first 490 of those graffiti removal instances happened in the first 30 days of the program. So we were really kind of behind in that. Also, you look at the difference it makes when you have a trash can or a street light that's in disrepair, clearly in need of some attention. It just sends a signal that that this is a place that's cared for. And I think it's important to note with these cleaning, the safe and clean. We talk about safe and clean. The cleaning aspect is really just another factor for safety, right? For a couple of reasons. One is when you're in a place that's cared for, it makes people feel safer. Just their perceptions improve. Also, when you're in a space that's well maintained, those that might have an inclination toward bad behavior won't do it in those kinds of places, again, that are well cared for, well maintained, and well managed. Some people are very passionate about gum spots. They hate them. I'm not necessarily one of them, but it's good to note that we removed over 5,000 gum spots with some high temperature power washing. And so after that summer, after that 3 months, we did a lot of outreach to business leaders and property owners to find out, who was interested in this? Where was the most amount of support? We wanted to put this in a spot, again, it's by business, for business. We wanted to put it in a place where it was going to have a lot of support. So based on what we saw there, we recommended to our board that we convene a steering committee to actually draft up a proposal for a district, and if they could find a consensus. And so we did that. We hired a consultant team called Urban Place, who's helped dozens of cities around the country set up districts like this. And that was a really great, it was great to have their expertise as a part of the process. Our steering committee members really, again, kind of picked from the folks who expressed the most interest in putting it together and exploring the feasibility, not just the feasibility, but like what would the specifics be for it. And so this is the district map that they came up with. And on this map, you'll see the blue dots represent the steering committee members. Green dots represent city-owned property, and the maroon represents county-owned properties. The program that they have recommended is a real kind of bread and butter program, huge focus on safety and both outcomes and perceptions. So a clean and safe program modeled very much after best practices from around the country. There were essentially two programmatic components to the Safe Clean programming. One was the ambassador services that we piloted. We just showed that little video clip for, which are that kind of boots on the ground, the high visibility piece of it. But the other really important program was the Safety Communication Center, the Fusion Center, where that kind of build that collaborative and communications infrastructure so that we do a better job of really tapping the right resource toward the right need. We had a great experience. One example from last summer was one of our ambassadors was out. They had the opportunity to kind of get to know some of the people in the community who were experiencing homelessness. They also got to know some of the social service providers and would attend their weekly gatherings over at Central Library. And on one occasion, there was an individual experiencing a mental health crisis. It was a cold and rainy day. This person was without a shirt, came up looking for a cigarette. Our ambassador was able to give him his jacket, walk him over, kind of personally, like escort him to a service provider and get him some help. I feel like that's a really compelling example because without it, right, that would have likely resulted in a 911 call. We would have had a couple of officers tied up for a couple of hours and maybe not necessarily led to the best outcomes for that individual. So I think that's an important piece of this as well. So that was the program consensus. There was also three really important requirements to the steering committee and to the stakeholders that'll be supporting this. One is that the public sector participate and kind of pay their fair share based on the buildings that the city and county own within the district. The second is that like Minneapolis and like kind of all other districts that it's not only is it sort of by business and sort of self-determined and self-assessed, but also self-managed, so that a new organization for the district would be the sole source provider. And while I think they're happy to be held to the same kind of outcome expectations from a policy perspective, not necessarily held to the same procurement standards or going through the city's process for procurement. The third is that the city and county also maintain existing levels of service. There's a great fear, of course, that by them paying more voluntarily, that it would be an excuse for the city to essentially offload other projects or other investments in the downtown. And of course, the whole point of this is that it's additive, that it enhances and supplements the existing resources dedicated to the district. It was very much our misfortune that we started distributing the initial petitions just days before everybody went to stay-at-home orders and working from home, and kind of the whole world changed on us. So we went back to those steering committee members and we said, we can scrap this, we can proceed as planned. What should we do? And what we ultimately decided, we needed to adjust the timeline. We worked with city staff to come up with our new timeline. Really, really appreciative of staff for their help in coming up with an adjusted timeline in terms of process to get the ordinance through. And the other thing we did is decide to phase in the implementation. And so the 2021 proposal is to really just implement the Fusion Center piece, with the idea being that in 22 we'd come in and then add that more visible ambassador side of the program. I think that's a good way to kind of adapt to this current crisis, because we definitely have needs, probably more needs than ever. and getting the Fusion Center up and operating, which we plan to do yet this fall with funds that the Alliance has raised, in addition to the Community First Public Safety budget from that you all passed at the end of last year, to get that up and operating. We're looking actually to start construction on that in August, and that should be done by October. So we're excited about that. But that program will allow us to really begin the kind of collaborative efforts, to begin coordinating information and communication, and set us up so that when we get those ambassadors on the ground, we'll have that kind of thing in place. The downside to starting with just the Fusion Center is, while I think we'll have better outcomes, where I think we'll better leverage our existing assets, it won't be particularly visible to the workers in downtown. They won't see those brightly uniformed folks out on the streets that provide that kind of reassurance that it's a safe and well-managed space. And it also means we won't necessarily be able to resolve issues as quickly as possible. If there's vomit on the corner, or if there's a need, we'll tie into, or we'll tap into private resources, public resources. We'll try to bird dog those issues and make sure they get alleviated, but we won't have the people, the boots on the ground, to just call right away and get those situations resolved. The rate and fee structure, based on two factors: the total building square footage, gross building area, and also street frontage. And then this is just a slide showing what the state requires. In order to get the conversation started, we had to petition with petitioners representing 25% of the district. I was excited that we turned in petitions from commercial property owners representing 60% of the district. And then once the ordinance passes, there's a 45-day objection period. And if 35% or more of those property owners, or rather property owners representing 35% of the district or more, oppose it, then the ordinance is effectively vetoed according to state law. So that's my presentation. Now, how do I go back to not screen share? Stop sharing. Okay, are we back?
We're back. We just need to press hide stage, and then we're back to where we started from. Thank you for the presentation and the visuals, Joe. I think it was very helpful. And I was just thinking as you were wrapping up that it's been very interesting with COVID, because it reminds me of like when you're allergy testing and you kind of take away everything and then start adding things back in to try to figure out where you're, what you're allergic to or what your challenges are with your diet. And it seems like in some ways that's happened downtown by kind of stripping away all the folks that are there on for business or travel on a regular basis, and really coming face to face with the chronic homeless, the unsheltered folks, just like what are our challenges. And it's been really under a magnifying glass, but it also, I think it is probably similar to what it is typically, but there is not the shield of all the other people and all the other activities. So I think it's been an opportunity to really drill down and understand what the challenges are downtown, and help us map out the path to a prosperous and clean and safe feeling area. So I appreciate the information. I see Ms. Naker has her mute off.
Thank you, Council President. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Emma, for being here today. I really appreciate the presentation. And I learned a lot, even though I serve on the Downtown Alliance board. It was really informative to see it presented in this way today. And I'm just really excited for us to take the next steps to create this district. I think it's so long overdue. As Joe pointed out, every other bigger city in the country has one of these, and many smaller cities. And I think it's very rare that we have such a clear-cut solution to problems that I hear about regularly from my constituents in terms of downtown safety, cleanliness, user-friendliness. And this is kind of staring us right in the face, and we just need to take the opportunity. I also hear from constituents who travel to other downtowns. I just got an email a couple weeks ago, someone who had been to Madison, Wisconsin, and said, gosh, it's just so clean, and there were people greeting me, and I look online and there's the Madison, Wisconsin Downtown Improvement District. And often when I hear from folks who are asking why our downtown can't be that way, it's because of the lack of this structure. And I also appreciated the point you made, Joe, about downtown ambassadors, or whatever we choose to call them, doing some of that work of community caretaking that really shouldn't be done by police, but that we have a need for. And as we're having these conversations about police reform and equity, I think there's a huge opportunity here to shift some of those roles of addressing people who are experiencing homelessness, helping people who are just in a vulnerable position, but there's no criminal activity going on. I think that we could see in the video, and that's clearly what the ambassadors can do. And then I also think, to Council President Brenmoen's point, I think COVID has shown us a ton, but one of those things is the need for cleanliness. I think people visiting cities now are going to be paying much more attention, even if it's just sort of subconsciously, to how that downtown makes them feel in terms of physical health and cleanliness. And I think having that be more of a focus downtown will be really important for us to compete in this COVID age. So I just want to say thank you. And I really also want to recognize the steadfast members of the committee who have been working on this, and the very generous property owners who are willing to assess themselves above and beyond to pay for this. And I just want to restate my commitment to them that I completely understand that this does not mean that the city can back off of our commitments to downtown. We continue at exactly the same level of service, and it's just that those additional contributions help enhance what is going on downtown. So I'm excited to see this move forward.
I appreciate your clarification of that point. I think it was a conversation that came up last year when we were talking about lighting. We're talking about above and beyond what has been a baseline for the support we provide downtown. So I appreciate your drawing that out and clarifying again. Thank you, Ms. Naker. Ms. Prince.
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Spencer, for your presentation. That was really helpful. And I want to just recognize that John Manillo, downtown denizen, is the first person who I heard talking about this probably back in the 90s, that this is something that was happening in other cities, and that it's something that it's great that now we have a will to do that downtown. Just getting back to the map, so it's my understanding that the map reflects where there is support now for the improvement district, and that we'll be trying to grow it because we would like to get more of downtown covered by the district, but it's a matter of certain property owners not being willing to make that investment. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Council President Brenmoen, Councilmember Prince, and members of the council, that is true. Again, we looked at the way other cities have done their implementation, and starting with the place where you've got the kind of most enthusiastic support. It really does. The state law requires a strong amount of support. And of course, that's also it's in keeping with the whole principle of it, that it's by business for business. It's self-imposed and self-managed. So we're starting where we have the kind of strongest core of support. But the idea isn't necessarily that that'll be a fixed boundary, that it is our expectation that, like other cities, this will prove to be successful. This will prove to be something that property owners find in their interest to do, and that it would spread based on where that interest comes from. I would, there are a couple of really important exemptions and that are also in play. One is that if you're tax exempt, you're not included, but for a voluntary contribution. But the state law also exempts residential property. And so where we have large concentrations of residential property, we also plan, once we have the core established, to approach on a kind of block by block basis those residential properties to say, we'd love to extend these services into your block. We would need for you to help pay for the cost of that service extension. And so the idea is, again, that on a voluntary basis and through growing the district through the ordinance, we can cover more down the road than what you see now in the proposed core.
Thank you. And I really appreciated the example you gave of the way in which it coordinates private security, because I think that is a critical piece of what we have available downtown, that if they were talking to each other, they could be far more effective in working together. One other question I have, in terms of maybe as this takes off, and again, this comes down to that issue between what the city currently provides and what the district would be able to supplement. We continually have problems covering holiday lights, and hanging baskets, I know, is another issue that is increasingly difficult for us to pay for. Another need that we have downtown is for public restrooms, and I'm wondering if these are potential future investments of the downtown district, even if in the case of holiday lights, they have previously been paid for with help by the city.
Councilmember Prince, Council President Bremon, I would say that holiday lights or blooming St. Paul, those are great examples of programs where currently, I believe, the city is able to put in a pretty modest amount of money and then leverage additional private sector donations to make those happen. And they're a kind of classic example of relatively low, small investment, big impact that I think the city should continue to make. Now, that being said, with the district organized, if the city were interested in working with the district to help with the matching piece, or perhaps with support from the city, take over some of those pieces for, if you're currently, I don't know what the number is, but if you're currently investing $10, that you were to contract with the district, for your $10, and we'd try to match that or whatever, and take over the implementation. I think that's something that we'd be open to and would not be uncommon around the country. But I also would suggest that the same reason why that was a good investment, on the part of the city in the past couple of decades, would be the same going forward. But if we want to think about how we can implement it more efficiently or do a smarter job, absolutely, we'd be open to that. With regard to restrooms, I can tell you there are a few models around for restrooms. There are some very, very expensive self-cleaning models. There's a model where you simply rent a porta potty and pay for it to be serviced. That's something that very well may be a part of something we'd consider. The other thing that we've seen some cities have success with is just putting out better indications of where there are publicly accessible restrooms currently, right? Like if you want to go to the library or the depot, or there are a handful of them, and our downtown is one of our great advantages, competitive advantages, and one of the things that makes it so great is we're a really compact downtown. So I doubt you're ever more than a 5-minute walk from a publicly accessible restroom currently. But having no idea, I could stand across the street from the depot and have no idea that there's a restroom inside that would be available to me.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm very supportive of it, and I'm happy that we're launching it.
Great.
Congratulations to the whole committee on that.
Thanks, Ms. Prince. Mr. Tao.
Thank you, Council President. Joe, thanks for sharing with us today the updates. I'm just curious. So the organization that's being used in Minneapolis is Block by Block, right?
Yeah, yes, that's the vendor that they contract with for the delivery of ambassador services.
And so I'm just curious, like, are they union? Do we, Did they go through RFP process so that other people get a chance? I was just curious about that.
Sure, Council President Brenman, Councilmember Tao. Yes, that's right. On both counts, actually. When the district is up for renewal, there'd be a contract bidding, and there are a couple other vendors that I would expect would come in and be a part of that. So it's not a closed process by any means. And also in Minneapolis, I think including in Duluth and Rochester, the block by block workers are organized with the Service Employees International Union contract, and so they are unionized.
And do we have a number how diverse is their workforce?
Council President Brenman, Councilmember Tao, I actually don't have that information offhand. I would tell you by my observation, they appear to be quite diverse, but I don't have data. I'd be happy to follow up with you and get that information.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. I'm checking to see if other folks have questions for you. Ms. Prince, are you back? Or
Yes.
Ms. Prince?
One issue in terms of the shape of the district is that it doesn't include the whole Skyway system. So does that become a problem in terms of providing services in part of the Skyway system and not other portions of it? I mean, how do we overcome the consistent management of the Skyway system?
Yeah, Council President Brenman, Councilmember Prince, it's certainly not ideal. I mean, I absolutely, it would be better if it were just sort of more comprehensive in nature. We do plan, and there's reason to be optimistic that several of the buildings outside of the district may choose to participate in the Fusion Center through a fee-for-service contract, and that will help with the coordination. And that's certainly an important need that a lot of people experience our downtown through the Skyways, and we want to make sure that there's at least a baseline of service and kind of management offered, and that's been a challenge. So it's our hope that we will be able to expand through that fee-for-service option, even if a particular property owner lies outside the district, does not want to join the district, but wants to be a part of some or all of the services. We can provide that essentially a la carte through a fee-for-service contract, and I'm hopeful we'll get some participation that way.
Great. And one other thing I wanted to say, in terms of the residential district, are you getting some feedback that people are interested in that?
Council President Brenman, Councilmember Prince, yes. I think there's a lot of interest in it. You never know if everybody wants, everybody likes something for free, and so we haven't gotten to the point of talking about, well, are you willing to add this to your list of expenses? That being said, we've heard, I think, a lot of positive indications from especially around Lower Town, that they, I think, like to be a part of it. And I know that the Lower Town Futures Fund is interested in something like that. There is a provision in the state law for a residential improvement district, but that's quite different. The way the way I interpret and experts I've talked to have interpreted that language is really more for physical improvements rather than services. So I don't think that's probably the right solution. We are in conversation with Minneapolis, Rochester, and Duluth about exploring maybe having that state law change so that residents could be counted on kind of equal basis as commercial property owners, and also have the opportunity to contribute to those services. Here and across the country, we're seeing lots and lots of residential growth in downtown communities. And though we are experiencing a kind of time of uncertainty certainty right now related to COVID. Every indication is that that's going to continue over the medium and long term. And so it only makes sense that the beneficiaries of those services are invested in both determining the services, but also in helping to pay for them.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful. Ms. Yang.
Thanks, Council President. Hi, Joe. I have a couple of questions for you. I know that you talked about safety being one of the bigger concerns that that you hope will be resolved through the system that you put into that is implemented. And I'm sure you noticed that safety is a really big topic right now, especially like around policing, and not just in St. Paul, but many other cities and around the country as well. And so right now there's a really, it's so important for us to really talk about safety through an anti-racist lens. And I'm wondering how you envision or see this new program here really playing a role in that, and how that's going to be practiced, and what type of policies will be implemented for city ambassadors as well. Are they going to be showing up in a way that's like similar to how the police have showed up in terms of like maybe like an authority figure, in the community? I think that I feel like I'm bringing this up because if it is the case where, it's playing like a very similar role to the police, there will be many community organizations that will probably come to us, really concerned and very upset at how, safety will continue to be perpetuated through the same lens as it is now, which I feel we're in a spot of trying to resolve already. And it probably would bring us much further from where we want to be if we're seeing the same thing being replicated in a different way.
Council President Brennan, Councilmember Yang, thank you for that question. It's an important question. First of all, I want to clarify that this strategy, I don't think will resolve the needs for safety and improvements, but I think it's a proven strategy to help. To the substance of your question, though, I think it's been interesting to see. Often, first, let me be clear that the ambassadors that are out there, people who work in the Fusion Center, these are not police. They don't look like police. It's a very, very different role. And I should say that the building owners, the ratepayers, the steering committee members that will agree to pay for this, they very much value the role of police, and they don't want this to in any way they don't want to see this is a different role. This is an enhanced role to partner with and collaborate with police. And in just the same way I was talking about the importance of connecting through having shared communication and kind of regular collaboration, through connecting the best resource for the right need, I think is what makes this program really good, and I think helps to address some of those concerns. Again, not every need in a downtown would require a police call. Sometimes there are other better resources to connect to resolve a particular need. Even to the extent where I have seen in some of the national conversation, this ambassador model being talked about as an alternative to policing. Like I wouldn't necessarily advocate for that, but I think it's a nice complement to having a badge and a gun. Our ambassadors, our staff will be out there in bright neon colors, with a pan and broom, very clearly marked as ambassadors, but not as enforcers. The police are the police. This is a very different role, and I don't know if that. I think that answers your question, but I'd be happy to have more conversation about it with anybody who'd be interested.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. And did you have a follow-up, Ms. Yang?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Ms. Jalali.
Great, thanks. And actually, thanks, Ms. Yang. I thought your question got at some of the things I was thinking about, but it's very great to hear the vision behind it, Joe. So that I appreciated that conversation too. I guess first is a comment that that stop motion video day in the life of an ambassador is just one of the coolest storytelling things I've seen in a presentation, and I love it. And please thank the person who was willing to volunteer their entire day on video and the wave at the end and just like seeing the human behind it and everything. It shows just all of the things that are happening. It's like the million small things that add up to placemaking and a sense of connection and hospitality. And I just really appreciated that, and the way you kind of bring everything together when you talk about your work. I guess, yeah, I just wanted to note that I really appreciate that. And I suppose I'll just say that I got the chance to meet with you and Emma a few months back. I do think it was maybe even longer. It feels like a lifetime ago when the world hadn't changed. But I remember you talking about just the sort of multiple pieces to gain community support and kind of build this out. And I just, I see that reflected in this presentation, and it's really helpful as we think about how to support this work. And I know other folks here have asked some really good questions, so I let those stand, but I simply wanted to chime in with just some gratitude for the thought that's gone into this, and hope to continue seeing the initiative succeed and making it thrive, because it does seem like it's a unique program that isn't quite happening anywhere else in the city. And I appreciate the model in action of trying to view placemaking and sort of treating public spaces as a part of a broader safety plan. And I think that is important. So I simply wanted to lift those things up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jalali. Are there other comments from my colleagues? Our questions, our concerns, our enthusiastic support? All right.
Just one, Council President.
Ms. Naker, yeah.
Sorry, thanks. Just on a sort of procedural note, Joe, I may have missed this, but can you speak to what the next steps are to actually, now that the petition has been submitted, to create the district, and what our role will be?
Council President Brenmo, Councilmember Naker. So I believe staff right now in Office of Financial Services and City Attorney's Office and the City Clerk are reviewing the petitions that were submitted. And just yesterday, staff member from City Attorney's Office reached out to ask for other language models from other cities to craft the ordinance language. It's our hope that that will get introduced, I believe, in 4 to 6 weeks or so, and have that, so that, and then as that works its way through the multiple readings and public hearings that are required, if things proceed as we hope, then that would get passed, I believe, by the end of September, which then would initiate the 45-day objection period. So that objection period required in state law is expired before the deadline for the fee to be included with the property tax statements.
Sounds good. Okay, great. Well, once again, Joe, it's been wonderful to have you here. We really appreciate this update and the, as folks have said, the thought process behind where you're at today, and then also a path for where we're going next. It's been very helpful and informative, and I think we often say we appreciate being brought along for the ride. A lot of times we hear about things when they're about to pass, or when they're, coming before us for a vote. And I think we all feel more invested when we're part of the process. And whether it's being on the committee or just the check-ins like this, I think it really helps us be bought into the work that's happening downtown. And so I very much appreciate your time and your information. Would you have, if you have anything you'd like to close out with, well, I can hand it back over to you. Otherwise, we'll come to the end of our agenda today.
Council President Brenmo and members of the council, let me just say thank you for the opportunity to share for some of the work we've done, to have a full hour of your time to have this conversation is a real privilege for us and an honor. I'll also say we are experiencing some real challenges in downtown. Our downtown is meant to be full. It's designed, our public spaces are designed to be full of people who live, work, and visit our downtown. And right now, we mostly have people who live downtown. Folks are working from home, and our visitors don't have the normal places to visit. And so I know that you'll have a lot of challenges ahead of you as you sort of march into budget season. But I just want to implore you the importance of downtown to our city's identity, the importance of downtown. Everybody who lives throughout the city, this is your downtown, and we need it to be successful. We need it to be a place that continues to hold as many jobs and cultural destinations as it is. And we're trying to do our part with this program. This is one piece of it. And I just ask for your support in that and in all other ways. And thank you for the work and the support that you've been committed to over the many years, and look forward to working together in the next few months to build out these new strategies, as well as do our best to hold together what we currently have.
Thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate it. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. So if there is nothing else to come before us today, we will adjourn until we meet again later on this afternoon. Thank you so much. We're adjourned.